Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're stepping deep into the frozen heart of the Middle Ages. Imagine trying to survive winter with no heating, no supermarkets, and no Netflix to pass the long dark nights. How did ordinary people endure months of bitter cold, hunger, and isolation? What did they eat? How did they stay warm? And what dangers lurked in the snow? Stick around, because this story will take you right into the world of medieval winter survival. Grab a warm drink, close your eyes, and let yourself sink into the past. 1. Life inside medieval homes. Most peasants lived in houses that were poorly insulated, built of wood, wattle, and daub. Cold winds crept through every crack, making winter indoors nearly as harsh as outside. Many homes were built on earth mounds to keep in a little warmth. And at the center of every dwelling was a fire pit, used for both heat and cooking. But unlike later chimneys, these fires vented through holes in the roof, filling the rooms with smoke and leaving everything coated in soot. People carried the smell of smoke everywhere they went. To survive the frost, animals were often brought inside. Chickens, pigs, and even cattle might share the same space as the family, adding warmth with their body heat. Of course, this meant noise, smells, and crowding, but it also meant survival. In Viking longhouses, long stone-lined fire pits helped radiate heat throughout the building, while cattle and other animals were housed right alongside people for extra warmth. And wealthier homes built of stone, cold was a constant problem. Only the rich could afford glass windows. And even then they still froze. The Palace of Westminster in London was glazed in the 1230s to block icy drafts, but it remained bitterly cold inside. The poor made do by blocking their window holes with paper, cloth, or even branches. Fires helped, but braziers and open flames often led to devastating house fires. 2. Clothing and warmth. When the cold struck, layering was the key to survival. Linen underclothes went beneath heavy, wool garments. Boots, cloaks, scarves, and gloves were often worn indoors as well as outside. For those who could afford it, furs added extra protection: rabbit, lambskin, and even fox fur-lined cloaks and hoods. The wealthy flaunted their fur-lined coats, while peasants had to beg permission from their lord to trap game for skins. Heating stones or bricks in the fire and wrapping them in cloth created makeshift hot water bottles. The rich sometimes carried decorative hand warmers, small metal cases filled with hot charcoal to keep their hands from freezing in churches during long sermons. Everyone, rich or poor, knew that without proper clothing and fire, winter could easily claim their lives. 3. Weather and harsh winters. The medieval climate was unforgiving. Between 1300 and 1870, the Little Ice Age brought longer, harsher winters. Rivers froze solid, towns were buried in snow, and people sometimes starved when supplies ran out. In the winter of 1363, the Rhine River froze for 70 days, and markets were held right on the ice. In Belgium, snow lasted over 3 months. Even in Italy and France, entire towns were buried under drifts more than 15 feet high, trapping families indoors for days. In the north, Scandinavians adapted with skis, sleds, and snow gear. Vikings hunted across snowy landscapes, using skis and skates made from animal bones. Further south, travel and communication nearly stopped when blizzards struck, leaving isolated villages cut off and vulnerable. 4. Food and survival. Surviving winter meant planning ahead all year long. Firewood was gathered from spring through summer, bundled, and stored for the cold months. Crops harvested in autumn had to be preserved. Meat was smoked, dried, or salted, and grains stored in clay or ceramic pots. Pickling, brining, and drying were essential for survival. Bread, stews, and porridge made from stored grain kept families alive. Meat was scarce, but dried ham, beef, and salted fish could last for months. Dairy was vital. Milk turned into butter, cheese, or sour yogurts. In Scandinavia, a curdled milk cheese called skyr was eaten in large quantities. Even the leftover whey from cheese making was used to pickle meat. Fresh fruits and vegetables were nearly impossible to find in midwinter, making preserved berries and pickled produce valuable treasures. Water was usually collected from wells or streams, but in extreme winters, snow was melted for drinking. Without these preparations, many would not live to see spring. 5. The Great Famine, but no amount of planning could prevent disaster when nature struck. Famines hit Europe roughly once every 20 years, but the worst came between 1315 and 1317. Endless rains ruined crops, animals starved, and disease spread. With no harvest, food supplies collapsed. Crop yields fell by nearly a third, and hunger drove people to desperate acts. Crime surged, and there were even reports of infanticide and cannibalism. The famine killed between 1 and 3 million people, devastating up to 30 million across Europe. It was the worst natural disaster of the late Middle Ages until the Black Death struck just decades out. 6. Entertainment and winter life. Still, life was not only about survival. During the long, dark months, people found ways to pass the time. Snowball fights and ice skating with makeshift skates were common among children, while Vikings used winter games to train their youth for future battles. Indoors, storytelling, spinning wool, and board games like chess and backgammon kept families occupied. Dice games were popular, and strategy games were played by the fire. For the nobility, hunting wild boar in the snow was both dangerous sport and a way to gather meat. Books like The Secretum Secretorum even gave advice on winter health. Eat hot meats like pigeon or mutton, drink red wine, and avoid overindulgence, though overeating was considered more acceptable in winter, since the body digested better in the cold. Conclusion: for medieval people, winter was a season of constant struggle. The cold crept into their homes, food ran short, and disease spread easily as families huddled together for warmth. Yet they endured with ingenuity, resilience, and tradition. They layered wool and fur, preserved food with every method they knew, and found joy in games, stories, and faith. So the next time you sit in a warm room with a hot drink, remember the peasants who shared their homes with pigs, the nobles shivering in stone castles, and the Vikings skiing across frozen forests. Winter was always just a heartbeat away from hunger, illness, or death. Thank you for joining me on this journey into medieval winter survival. If you enjoyed immersing yourself in the harsh but fascinating world of the Middle Ages, make sure to subscribe for more historical deep dives. Stay warm, and I'll see you in the next story.